So I guess let's get started with, do you think that there is any type of potential path for Trump with the litigation and with all the different stuff for him to possibly win, or do you think that ship has sailed?
Well, I certainly think that there is a pathway forward, both on litigation and on the changes that we've seen just in the recent few hours. So,
Mhm.
North Carolina has been called both for the president and for Senator Tillis. So, that's 15 electoral votes.
Oh, I had not heard about that yet.
Yes. Yeah. Just in
Mhm,
about the last two
mhm.
hours, maybe two and a half, 3 hours. And then also with regard to Real Clear Politics pulled back their award of or projection of the 20 votes in Pennsylvania to former Vice President Biden. So that does not leave him at this 279 number. It's really actually was 259. And that will bring him even further below the 270 mark. And if you look at the 6 states in total, so that would be Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada that are contested, the president actually is above former Vice President Biden. I want to say 242 to 236.
Mhm.
With the litigation that's going on and recounts that are going on in a few states now, um, Pennsylvania, it looks like there will be a hand recount in Georgia, which, if that turns out favorably, could also bring David Perdue, Senator Perdue, above the 50% mark, taking him out of the um, sweepstakes for January in a runoff.
Uh-huh.
And you would only have one Georgia current senator in a runoff, which would be Senator Loeffler and her opponent.
But that's very interesting about having a hand recount because the last I saw, according to I think AP or something like that, Biden was only ahead by it was like point 0.2 or something like that. It was
That's
very
correct.
close.
It's very, very close. And so Congressman Doug Collins, who will be leaving the Congress next year, is leading that legal fight in Georgia right now. And then you have the Arizona battle, and you also have the Nevada battle as well, along with Pennsylvania. I believe they're doing a recount in Wisconsin, and then Michigan is probably heading in that direction too.
Because I did see, I saw on
Mhm.
I want to say Gateway Pundit, I believe, that they were
Yes,
talking about how that there was evidence of a lot of software glitches in some of those
yeah.
Rust Belt states.
If you look there now, you'll see those numbers that I just iterated a moment ago.
That's very interesting.
And that was maybe 40 minutes ago, something like that.
You
Well,
know.
it's interesting. So the Arizona count is down below 15,000. That's separating the two candidates, and there's
Very close.
65,000 ballots left to count, and those are in the suburban areas of East Phoenix, where uh, Congressman Biggs is, Debbie Lesko, and Dave Schweikert, and those are red districts.
Mm. So there's a very good chance that that Arizona, I don't want to say flipped because they prematurely called it in those news networks.
Yeah, that was challenging
Hmm.
and unnecessary. Well, the it hasn't been, nothing's been certified yet, so we need to just remain calm and be patient.
Uh-huh.
Things are definitely moving in that direction in a few of these places. And it's interesting. So with this is a little bit more granular, but
Hmm.
with if there were to be a tie
Hmm.
of 269 electoral votes, let's say,
Hmm.
the state legislatures in the Congress, excuse me,
Mhm.
in the Congress are disproportionately controlled by Republicans.
That I remember hearing a report that the Democrats didn't win any state legislators across the country during this election, but that was
That
about
is
a week
correct.
ago. So,
That is correct.
mhm.
So, in that regard, Republicans held all of their state legislative bodies, and they picked up Alaska and New Hampshire. So they are all Republican with Republican governors. And then in the state house speaker in Rhode Island flipped to Republican. That has not happened in 100 years in the Ocean State. And
That's
the
incredible.
same also in the state of Vermont in New England. So certain pockets of New England have a definitive red hue to them.
Mhm. Man, that's incredible because it was interesting because when I was watching election night and over the course of the last week and such, I felt like this election felt so weird, and this one felt so strange because it was like the GOP holding the Senate, Trump gaining 10 million votes, probably going to be closer to 15 once it's all over.
Yes.
Them not taking any legislative bodies, the gains in the House, and I was like, the Biden is like the standout, basically. I was like, otherwise, this feels like a pretty decent win for the GOP across the
Well,
country.
I don't want to leave out one of my favorite legislative bodies on the planet, which is the House of Representatives.
Hmm.
Right now, with the Michelle Steele pickup of California 48,
Hmm.
which is my hometown of Laguna Beach, California. It's
Hmm.
Laguna, Dana Point, Newport Beach, and Huntington Beach that are on the
Hmm.
coast in Orange County in California. That brings us up to 8 pickups, and we are looking at potentially 11 to 12 pickups, in addition to only losing one House seat, which would be Rob Whitman's
Hmm.
open Republican seat in Georgia. So Mrs. Pelosi
Hmm.
will have a much narrower majority. Republicans are projected to pick up between 210 total, or be at 210 total to 212, which would
Wow.
leave somewhere between a 4 and 6 seat majority on the Democrat side,
Oh.
requiring that they adjust their legislative agenda to be more center right, to
Hmm.
pass through a Senate and potentially back through a second Trump administration. Or if Vice President Biden were to prevail, he would have to be much more centrist and moderate in his approach. And you've seen a number of Democrat members of the House in particular come out immediately and say that they can no longer campaign on defunding the police and no
Hmm.
longer campaign on socialism. And
Hmm.
that's in Virginia. Those are members from Virginia, South Carolina, Louisiana, New York State as well. They got hammered.
Hmm.
And when you look at the exit polls, boy, I'll tell you, those exit polls are a resounding victory, not only for the strategy of the president's campaign, but also the issues that he ran on and the contrasts relative to what the Biden campaign either ran on or avoided trying to talk about.
Hmm. No, that's very true. I was chatting with my mom before the election, and it was funny because she said, "Oh, I can't really exactly say what Biden stands for because I don't remember him ever talking about it." And I was like, "Well,
Well,
that was I guess that's one strategy, I
interesting.
guess."
Well, Naomi Wolf, who was a advisor to Al Gore for many
Mhm.
years and for Democrats for many years, said that if she knew that Biden was going to come out and campaign on a couple of items that she didn't care about, she would never have voted for him.
Mm.
So there is some buyer's remorse out
Mhm.
there. There's an interesting Rasmussen poll that came out this morning talking about the fact that only 56% of the people that voted for Biden actually voted for him. The other 44% voted against the president.
Wow.
That's not a mandate.
No, not at all. Man,
You can spin
that's
the daylights out of it for my friends, the DNC, all day long
mhm,
if you want to, but that's not a mandate.
mhm.
It's not good.
Going back briefly to Speaker Pelosi, with the shellacking, I guess you could say they got in the House.
Well, you know what I
Yeah.
refer to it
Uh-huh.
as, Byron? I refer
Uh-huh.
to it as the red wave that produced a
Uh-huh.
blue dot.
Do you think that she's going to be able to hang on to her position as speaker, or do you think that that they're going to try and put somebody else in there?
Well, Senate Democrats
Mhm,
just got behind Chuck Schumer
mhm,
to give him another shot as minority leader. Mrs. Pelosi, that is up in the air right at the
mhm,
moment. If I were betting someone else's money,
mhm,
I would bet that she gets another shot at it at this
mhm,
point in time. But there are definitive and deep fractures in the Democrat caucus that they are going to have to mend.
mhm,
And also, you have to look at the number of votes that the president was able to elicit as well as grow from 2016. So I believe he was at 62 million,
mhm,
or no, 64 million, I
mhm,
believe. I think Mrs. Clinton had 66 million.
mhm,
Correct my math there
mhm. No,
if need be.
I believe you're correct. Mhm,
And he's in the 71 million range. So that is a large number of voters that were brought out
mhm,
to vote to reelect the president. And you're going to have to spend a heck of a lot of time in the middle of America, fanning outward in all directions, convincing people that you should be reelected, or that in the midterms in 22,
mhm,
when there also happens to be 36 governor's races up that year,
mhm.
between, I think, somewhere between 8 and 11 open seats on combined on both sides,
Wow.
that a Biden agenda is not a threat to the livelihood of these men and women and their jobs, and the country at large. I think we have a very good chance on the GOP side of actually picking up the House
Mhm,
in 2022.
mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree because especially with the narrow margin that was pushed this time. I mean,
Yes.
having anywhere from 6 to 10 seats only to pick up is not an impossible task by any means.
Yeah, those 32 or so, 34 Democrats that are in Trump districts that he won heavily, there's now, a dozen fewer.
Mhm,
And so those that remain, those 21, 22, 23 odd members that were lucky enough to come back, they're going to be predisposed to voting on center right, meat and potatoes issues: jobs, the
mhm,
economy, public safety, national security, immigration,
mhm,
an actual transportation bill,
mhm,
a real COVID package
mhm,
that helps people, not that one that bails out mismanaged cities and their pension funds
mhm.
going forward, i.e., increasing the debt significantly.
Mhm. No, that's for sure, because I always hear in California about how they're hoping for a bailout to come in, and,
Good luck
California
with
is
that.
already yeah, California already has enough of a budgetary crisis here,
Hmm.
you know, um
And they have a pension fund obligation that's the size of their annual budget, which is
Mhm.
just unbelievable.
It's incredible, and, because whenever I listen to KFI a lot, and they talk a lot
Mhm.
about that stuff, and I'm like, "Man, it's just," it's not something that's gonna be able to go on forever, It's like
No.
there's gonna be a collapse at some point, you know? Um, Interestingly enough, you know in your opinion, because I remember when I was watching the election, on election night and stuff, and I was seeing, that Trump was looking really good in the earlier hours, and stuff with a lot of those states. Do you think that that some of the mail-in voting kind of made some things a little uneven with how the votes came in with the states? Because there was like I'm trying to remember, like, Pennsylvania for an example, about how I saw, like, he was ahead by was it 18 points or something like that, and then
600,000 votes.
yeah, and then it, like, then it just like drained down very quickly, And so I was wondering what your opinion if on that is. Mhm.
Well, I think that mail-in voting did help the Democrats at the beginning
Mhm.
of the process relative to when early voting started.
Mhm.
And then you have absentees, and then you have provisionals, and then you have day of voting. And so when you look at those four individual buckets, the Democrats place most of their chips on those early voting opportunities.
Mhm.
What that unfortunately did in terms of the alleged illegal activity is they were able to slow the count
Mhm.
vis-a-vis the networks. And there was a coordinated effort. And so where they needed to come up with 50 or 100,000 extra ballots, they magically came out of nowhere,
Mhm.
allegedly,
Uh-huh.
according to the president's legal team.
Mhm.
And there's going to be some serious problems there
Mhm.
because whether it is Justice Alito
Mhm.
talking about or ordering the state to segregate these ballots that came in
Mhm.
after 8 o'clock,
Mhm.
or it is some of this backdating that we
Mhm.
saw, or the video we have of individuals and subsequent affidavits in different states that were simply creating ballot entries. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't, I'll put it to you this way. I've never seen or heard of anyone voting just for the presidency
Mhm.
and nothing down ballot all the way to the initiatives or referendum or the bonding questions at the bottom of the ballot at the
Mhm.
local level.
Mhm.
And so you have a large number of that occurring in
Mhm.
multiple states, notwithstanding dead people,
Mhm.
notwithstanding people that don't live in the state
Uh-huh.
anymore, or those that voted twice, or
Mhm.
those, who, don't actually exist.
Mhm.
And so, these, to get a legal count
Mhm.
and count every legal vote is absolutely critical because it will continue to support our democracy and our voting system so that people can have faith in it.
Mhm. Exactly, because that's almost how, because obviously, I'm hoping that that President Trump prevails. But on the other hand too, I was like, well,
As am
even
I.
if even if Biden does win, it's important to have the transparency and have the
That's
faith
right.
because there's nothing more damaging than to possibly have 70 million people who don't believe maybe that the election, was all on the up and up. I mean,
Right.
that's terrible.
If he wins fair and square, so be it.
Mhm.
The president wins fair and square, fantastic.
Mhm.
And they feel very confident. Colleagues of mine are senior members of that legal team, and they actually know what they're doing. They
Mhm.
know how to look for what they need to look for to point out a infraction and illegal activity, et cetera.
Mhm. That's very good to hear, because like you said, you want every single legal ballot to be counted, you
Yes.
know? Yeah. Do you think that, that with all the mail-in, voting with COVID and everything that was being promoted, do you think that that in and of itself can help to eliminate October surprises this time? Because I remember with like the Hunter Biden stuff and all that, and I wondered, I was like, man, I wonder how many people possibly who saw some stuff, but then they'd already voted, and I was like, I wonder if that impacted anything at all.
It certainly looks as though it has,
Mhm.
and also you have different individuals who have signed affidavits, legal documents saying that they saw this occur. And as the Justice Department stated on Monday, where they are going to allow their teams to go and investigate these men and women who, whether they're postal workers, whether they're ballot workers, what have you, that are interviewed, if they lie to a federal official, that's 5 years in prison. And I don't believe that any of these men and women who, are earning an average wage of 50, 60,
Mhm.
$70,000 a year have a Washington lawyer who can come to their defense. uh,
Very true.
and they're going to flip like a frog on a hot rock.
It's very true. When you're faced with possibly that cold hard time, then
Yeah.
suddenly suddenly your possible loyalty might not be as strong anymore.
Yeah, you can tell your union boss to go fly a kite,
Uh-huh.
to put it mildly. Right.
Exactly. I saw an interesting interview. I want to say it was maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and it was with the former candidate Andrew Yang,
Hmm.
and I found him very interesting. I followed his
He is
campaign.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't agree with with a lot of what he said, but I was like, oh, it's different, a different flavor coming in. And he said in the interview that he felt that the Democratic Party was becoming the party of the coastal elites. Elites, he said.
Correct.
And I was gonna ask you what your opinion was on that, what you thought.
Well, my view on the Democrat Party today is, and it's again, it's a contrast issue. It's the GOP, by expanding this base of voters
Mhm,
significantly, has become the party of the blue collar worker as well as the middle class, where the Democrats have become the party of big tech, big media, Wall Street, and billionaire donors on both coasts. Gee, what a shocker,
mhm.
right? And how are you going to go to Iowa? How are you going to go to Kansas? How are you going to go to Texas? And turn that around and get voters to vote all the way down ballot, not just the top of the ticket, when you in fact are on videotape saying you're for fracking and free college and Medicare for all and amnesty and things of that nature, or defunding the police, or abolishing ICE. I mean, voters are not stupid. Forget about the inside the Beltway crowd that thinks they, they obviously have more hubris than common sense or brains in many cases. These voters are not stupid. And the fact that we can sit here and communicate the way we are now,
Mhm,
but that everyone has one of these
mhm,
in their hand, right?
mhm.
um, they get their news and information 40 to 45% of the time from the internet and from
Mhm.
social media,
Very true.
rather. And that is a very powerful tool. So we did a very good job with
Mhm,
digital communication,
mhm,
and we'll continue to do that to drive messaging, notwithstanding having a robust and successful communicator like Donald
mhm,
Trump out there with his rallies,
mhm.
which I believe after this Sunday's event um, uh, in DC,
Mhm,
he's going to be back out on the stump doing these
mhm,
rallies again.
mhm. That's awesome because that is one thing that I have really liked, about like Donald Trump and stuff is that I like how he goes out. He's constantly communicating, and I know a lot of people don't like his Twitter account, but I enjoy hearing his thoughts, and it's interesting having a president who's communicating multiple times a day with his constituents. We haven't really seen that before, and it was very interesting and something I liked.
He's
You
got
know.
200 million followers on
Mhm,
Twitter,
mhm,
and multi-million followers on
mhm.
Parler also.
Oh, yeah, 'cause, I've been hearing a lot about Parler lately, and,
Mhm.
I set up an account for myself, and I need to explore it a little bit more, but I think it's great to have alternatives to some of the
Absolutely.
social media that we have now.
Yeah, I've been using it for about a year and a half.
Mhm,
So colleagues of mine kicked that off the ground and said, "Hey,
mhm,
you need to start using this."
mhm,
About a year and a half ago, I looked at it and went, "Absolutely,"
mhm,
because we cannot have the kind of censorship that we've
mhm,
clearly seen, and that is another big tech problem
mhm,
as well. And I would also argue, because censorship is anathema to freedom and liberty
mhm,
that we love, enjoy, and embrace here in this country, and that were the hallmarks of this experiment called the United States.
Hmm.
it pushes against everything we believe in to our core for many, many generations and certainly several centuries.
Hmm.
You see the duplicity in some of our Democrat friends that
Hmm.
look at, have spent rather the last 4 years screaming, investigate Russia,
Hmm.
Russia, Russia. And then when Hunter Biden and his issues arise, they want to look in the other direction. And when the Democrat nominee, Mr. Biden, it's been reported that he's reached out and spoken to foreign leaders already.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's what they prosecuted Michael Flynn for.
No, you're right. Exactly. Yeah, because it was the early, yeah, and that
Yeah,
and Michael Flynn, yeah, because Michael Flynn, that was even after the election was over at that point. There wasn't
that's
even any
correct.
litigation going on or anything. Man, I hadn't heard about that. That's
Yeah, his quote unquote interviews by the former disgraced FBI director Jim Comey
mhm,
occurred before and after swearing in.
wow,
Yeah,
man,
just
that's
just I thought I'd just put that out there
yeah.
for people to consider.
Mhm.
You know,
No, because yeah,
so
it's
it's very interesting. The
uh-huh,
duplicity is nauseating.
mhm,
It isn't unexpected.
mhm,
We're all adults, so it isn't unexpected, but it is also not necessary. And that's where the disconnect comes from some folks inside the Beltway who are disconnected from how a business owner, a newspaper publisher, whether digital, print, or otherwise, a farmer conducts their lives and their businesses and their households on a daily basis.
mhm,
It's completely anathema to how they live.
mhm,
Yeah,
uh,
they live in a just a bit of a bubble.
mhm,
Have an agenda,
mhm,
and that generally is circled around seeking power
mhm,
in some way or other, rather than letting people live their lives free and in their own way. Again, inside that framework of law and order, public safety, and respect for one another.
mhm,
So I think there's an opportunity, quite frankly, for this incoming Congress, a second Trump administration, to bring a great degree of unity back to people and also begin to pull over those individuals who may have voted for Biden
mhm.
Harris that are regretting what they purchased with their vote.
Mhm. No, I agree, and I think it's gonna be very interesting, no matter what the outcome is, of the presidential election. I think it's gonna be definitely an interesting thing to watch, and if Biden does prevail, I think the next 2 years going into the midterms are gonna be a very interesting election to watch, I think.
Yeah, he has
Mhm,
about a year of legislative activity
mhm,
and regulatory activity and executive orders to pursue part of the agenda of the people that support him.
mhm,
But if it is out of hand or goes outside the boundaries of what Americans have been accustomed to these last 4 years, and it begins to hit their wallets and hit their ability to express themselves. If it occurs in a regulatory fashion where you can no longer drive a all-terrain vehicle in a public park, you have to mask or they shut you down. The economy shuts down again. That is simply not something people are going to be willing to accept.
mhm. No, it's very true, Americans like their freedom, and just,
We
it's
do.
kind of been the American thing of kind of you get left alone, you have your family, and
Correct.
everything, and as little
Your
government as
community.
possible.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Your
Mhm,
business.
mhm,
Right. Because we
exactly.
have, COVID has definitely impacted how people live.
Mhm,
It will continue to do that in state legislative budgets
mhm,
for the next several years. relative to the impact of COVID on people's lives, and also have an impact on how they are able to own a business, grow a
Mhm.
business, maintain a business, etc.
So, what do you think of, I want to say like a like because I know like time frames are liquid, but with the litigation and everything going on with the election, like do you think it's going to continue past a certain point, or do you think it's going to be wrapped up within a certain amount of time?
I think that this effort to litigate the existing outcome and the activities around the outcome of the election will, at a minimum, continue to move forward for at least another 3 weeks, possibly 4 weeks. So today is the 10th
Mhm.
of November, and the electors aren't set to convene until December 14. So in this 4 week period, the legal team for the Trump campaign is going to have to get all of their data, evidence, affidavits, etc., together, all in the next week to 2 weeks, submit it, and let the courts review it. This massive overstep in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania by the governor, the attorney general, and his secretary of state into the area of defining what the legislature and the US Constitution says the legislature should do regarding elections is a serious mistake. And if there's a ruling on that in the not too distant future, in the next week or 10 days, that's going to have a ripple effect on how, in fact, those other states will be affected as well because of those activities in those other states. I believe Nevada, out of the 6, is the only state that has a Democrat legislature. The other 5, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona, all have Republican legislatures. So they are the ones that the Constitution outlines have the ability to decide when and how you vote.
Man. And going into my last question here, and we covered a little bit of it before at the beginning. With these runoff elections in Georgia, for the 2 Senate seats and such. Do you personally, do you feel that if they continue and if the recounts don't change anything, do you think that they're going to end up being similar to like what they are now, or do you think there could be any dramatic plot twists, so to speak, with them?
I think that in both Senate runoffs, presuming that they both still continue forward, if there isn't a change in Georgia's
Mhm.
tabulation after the ballots are hand counted, that you will see, again, let's go back to the 56% voted for Biden, 44 against Trump, right? So a number of those people that voted against Trump, if he's not going to be there, they're not going to be motivated to show up in the
Mm.
numbers that they did before. Metro Atlanta is going to see, a 20-25% drop. The suburbs, rural areas, of course, of
Mhm.
Georgia, that may be sprinkled blue, like a robin's egg,
Uh-huh.
are also going to be affected that way. But you will also see a president out there, very quite visible,
Mhm.
very clear in what it means for the country. And you saw Senator Schumer without his mask, and then he quickly popped his mask on over the weekend, say, first it's Georgia, then he put his mask on, and the next is we change the world.
Mhm.
Well, that's a Republican commercial right there. So
Yeah.
thanks, Chuck. We appreciate everything you do to
Uh-huh.
help the GOP and your continued efforts to remain as minority leader in perpetuity.
Yeah. Oh, it is true. There's some of those sound bites I've heard that I'm like, don't even have to change anything. You just clip it and pop it right into that ad.
Correct.
It's like,
Correct. And it
Oh,
was a cynical, gleeful look on his
uh-huh.
face, which, I have a lot of friends in political media, and they'll be able to make him look even more sinister than he
Yeah.
already does. So
Uh,
it'll be
uh,
very interesting. That was another mistake.
mhm.
And then you couple that with a picture of a riot, locally there with Stacey Abrams screaming her head off for 2 years,
Yeah.
that she was robbed or set up like Pelosi at a hair salon.
Mhm.
And it's like, I'm sorry, 55,000 other people didn't vote for you. So
Yeah.
you lost the Georgia governor's seat also. Uh, you know, it's going to be a very expensive endeavor,
Mhm.
probably, 400 to 600 million per race in terms of money being poured in,
Wow.
because, after all, it is control of the U.S. Senate. But
Mhm.
I feel, very strong that it is a all or nothing proposition. We win both of them or we lose two.
Mm.
In that regard, that's a little bit of conventional wisdom to
Mhm.
some extent, but our folks on the Republican side are going to be highly motivated to turn out. I think that's
Mhm.
ultimately what's going to happen and help
Mhm.
both Senators Loeffler and Perdue prevail with a 52-48 Senate, with Mitch McConnell remaining as majority leader in the 117th Congress next year.
Yeah, that would be very awesome. I definitely I hope that turns out. And I think, with what you were saying, I think that's accurate. So man, well, I really appreciate your time and your insight with
My
this
pleasure.
election. It's
Anytime.
very interesting. Yeah, definitely. I hope we get to chat again because I think there's definitely going to be more to chat about in the next coming months.
Yeah,
So
there'll be a few things to
yeah,
talk about. That's for
just
sure.
an inkling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
Byron, it's my pleasure. Anytime, I'm certainly available.